So thank you ever so much. Can I give you a task to do while we're waiting for everybody to arrive? So I know some of you have started ventures. Some of you are already in that journey with where you're going. Some of you are wondering about legal structures. Some of you are wondering about funding. I guess what I'd like you to do at the start of this session is to think about the end of the journey. So what will success look like for you? So if you kind of go further down the line, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, maybe even a year's time, what do you want to achieve? What will success look like for you? I know some of you kind of support people who are enterprising and starting business. So think about it from that perspective. Or some of you are working with volunteers. So just think about it from your professional perspective. But you know, what would success be? What would it look like? What do you want to achieve? And it's like the start of an exam now, so everybody like quietly, diligently typing away. Once we start properly, I will give everybody an opportunity to tell us, you know, who you are and what you do. We'll need to keep that quite short and concise. Otherwise, the webinar will be over just on the introductions. But it's important to hear from everybody and where you're coming from. I should say as well, I'm in Caerphilly, I hope the internet will, you know, it's not always the best here. So if the internet cuts out, do let me know. You'll know I'll sound like a Dalek, and you'll think you're an episode of Doctor Who that's not particularly very good. So let me know if that happens. Okay, we're just going to give it just under a minute for any more people who are going to join us. Okay, and if you are joining us, we're thinking about what success looks like. So if you're starting a social business, what does success look like for you? Where do you want to be in a year's time, or 3 or 5 or 10 years' time? Or if you're supporting those in enterprise, what does success look like for you? Okay, well, we'll start properly. If other people join us, I'm sure they'll pick up the thread as soon as possible. So I'm Martin, I'm Social Entrepreneurship Officer for Social Business Wales. New Start, we're a European-funded programme to support new social enterprises. We have another programme to support growing ones as well. I'm just going to introduce a couple of colleagues who are on here. So Claudia, could you unmute and just say a quick hello?
Hi, I'm Claudia Limper and I'm a business advisor. So I cover Bridgend, RCT and Merthyr for New Start Social Enterprises.
Thanks, Claudia. Rhys, can you introduce yourself?
Hi there, Rhys Williams. I'm also a business advisor. I cover Cardiff, Newport, Monmouthshire, Powys, Vale of Glamorgan, one or two other little areas. So yeah, I'm sure you'll hear more from both myself and Claudia at the end of today's session when we do the question and answers. Okay.
Excellent, thanks, Rhys. And we've got Ben, who's, Ben doesn't put his name on there. He's just down as Social Business Wales. But Ben is kind of making sure everything holds together in this session. So say hello, Ben, give us a wave.
Hi guys, coming to you from Roath. Hope you're all well.
Brilliant, thanks, Ben. Ben, do you want to tell us what the housekeeping is for this session?
Absolutely. So just to let you all know, it's this webinar has been recorded and a version of it will be up on our website shortly in YouTube and on our website. If you want to go on a break, please don't end or leave the meeting. Just shut your camera off, turn your mic to mute and go away. Do what you need to do, come back to us. We will not be having breakout rooms today, but if you want to put any of your questions on the actual chat in the function you can see in the bottom of your toolbar there, there's a chat icon. And if you've got any questions or want to say anything or chat to somebody else in particular, put your questions in there. And yeah, have a good conversation. If you've got any questions, you can always come back directly to me on the chat as well.
Excellent, thanks, Ben. So we're going to do some short introductions. So just tell us who you are. If you've got a social business or a social business idea, tell us briefly about that as well. If I could start with Louise, do you mind unmuting?
Hello. Do you need the prop for this bit or no?
You've got a prop, that's brilliant, yeah.
Okay, shall I go? So my name's Louise, I'm in Newport, so Reece, you'd probably be one of my people to go to. I have a feeling my 7-year-old is about to interrupt, so excuse me. Oh no, he's closing the door on me, bless him. Okay, so yeah, I run Voyage Play Therapy, which is a children's counselling service. So it's been going about 2 years. I brought Spider-Man with me because Peter Parker is like the perfect epitome of some of the children I work with. So massive childhood trauma. He loses his parents, goes to kinship care, lives with his aunt, turns into a superhero. Some of our kids do that. Most of them end up outside the head teacher's office and not for good ideas. And part of this thing today is I want to see whether I go for more of a social enterprise approach or a CIC, or keep going and maybe go limited or whatever. But sadly, there is lots of work for the work that I do, and there's lots of people that aren't trained in the same way as me, and so some children aren't getting the best quality care that they could get at a really traumatic time, and I want to make sure that they do, and I want some good social aims to come out of that as well, but I don't understand most of the business side of stuff that I should do. So yeah, that's it.
Great, thank you, Louise, that's superb. Can I come to Helen next?
So, hello, I am a chair of a community group called Gilham Roots. We are just outside Abergavenny, and our group activity is focused basically on our parish council area. So a very small area of about 4,000 people, and we're completely, all the money we get goes straight back into what we do, but we're just set up as a constituted community group right now. The lady who does all the grant funding for me has been pushing me for the last 6 months to be more sustainable. And we've been looking at some ideas of how we can generate an income ourselves to keep all of our things that we output. At the moment, we're doing a litter pick. We normally run a community cafe, which is basically free for people to attend. We do food swaps, and I run a festival in the park, for free for everybody to attend. Last year we had about 2,000 people, 1,700 more, but yeah, something like that. So we want money to come in through our other ventures. So I'm looking at food connections with local businesses, we're looking at growing spaces, and we have a few ideas of paying ourselves one day and benefiting all of the people involved. But yeah, I have no idea either, really. We're very much in the beginning stages of how we would generate that income.
Excellent, thank you ever so much. Can I come to Llian next? I say Llian because that's the proper Welsh way to say it, isn't it? You'll have to unmute yourself as well, sorry.
Sorry, yeah, no, that is my name, so that was the proper way to say it. Right, well, I bought a prop, and it's kind of a little bit abstract, really, but I'll kind of explain how it fits into everything else. It's just a car. I'm on the community council in Dechreuwch, which is in Waterfall country in the Brecon Beacons, and we have massive visitor numbers, and at the moment, like car parking and traffic and just volume of people here is quite a big issue for the communities, but we have no way to benefit from it. So that's what this is about. We're looking for a way that we can kind of do some visitor management and kind of get benefit from all the visitors to the area, and then improve the local areas, sort of the surrounding towns and villages. So that's the plan.
Excellent, thank you. Can I come to Melanie next?
Hello, my name is Melanie. I'm a social worker in my day job. Last year, I worked with another social worker, and we set up a community group, which has gone on to become Hengoed Happiness and Wellbeing Group. And we've got a really vibrant Facebook page, and hundreds of members, and we do lots of really inclusive activities throughout the Caerphilly borough, but usually centred around the top end of Caerphilly, although we do a lot of visiting places and different things. I invite people to come to speak, and I invited Kevin Dawson, who's a psychologist, because I'm really passionate about positive psychology, and so he came along, and then with another member of our group, we decided that we'd like to take it a step further. So we're setting up Ignite, which is a community group, and well, we're looking at the format of the business. We're looking to see, we've achieved some fantastic things in the last year working voluntarily, and we'd like to work full time. Today, we've got some really exciting news. It looks like we've been allocated a building, what is currently a community centre, to turn into a wellbeing centre. So we've got lots of ideas, really, really excited. But yeah, we need some bring us back to earth. So we're looking for some advice about, how to go forward. Thank you.
Excellent, thanks, Melanie. Can I come to Peter next?
Prynhandar, everyone. So my name's Peter Max. I was originally an accountant in public services, then went into private equity, which is buying and selling of companies. So it was like a commercial education before doing a startup in the care sector in 2004, which was sold last year. And I've been always interested in having a positive social impact. And I'm really keen to use the advantages of what I've learned in business, having done a startup and grown it quite large anyway, with a team, to do something new next year as a social enterprise, or indeed a group of social enterprises. So I'm basically health and social care by origin, been a non-exec in the Welsh Government and in housing, and now in the workforce regulator in care, and not just interested in health and social care, but a variety of different enterprises. And my success would be with a group of like-minded individuals really making a positive impact in many communities in the UK. But I'm almost more interested in the business side of things and getting like-minded people to make an impact through the business, and then using the profits to fund social impact that's chosen by our customers and by the staff and the wider community. So I'm almost coming interested in the business first and then social impact second, which is probably the wrong thing to say, but the desire is to have a social impact, but making sure it's a successful business. Anyway, they were nice to see you all, and look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Excellent. No, that sounds good. We need exactly that kind of thinking. Colin, can I come to you next?
Certainly. Good afternoon. My name is Colin Woodley. I am the chair of the Here, Wine and Penderyn Community Council. I am also one of the members of the Hib Waterfalls Partnership, which Leanne explained just now. I am a chair of a charity. I'm secretary to 2 others, and I'm a director of a charitable company. But I'm here to learn as much as I can.
Excellent. Thanks, Colin. Rhys, not Rhys Williams, but Rhys Pierce-Palmer. Let's come to you.
Hello. So I'm actually a member of staff at Cardiff Uni, and our team supports students who are interested in self-employment or business startup. And this is really just a chance for me to be as clued up as possible about social enterprise, particularly because this isn't Cardiff Uni's point of view, but my personal point of view is that we really ought to only be supporting businesses that are responsible and ethical. So the more that we know, the more that I know, the better we can do that.
Excellent. Thanks, Rhys. Rhys, I will be dropping you a line as well. At Cardiff Business School have asked me to do a hackathon with 400 students. So I'll be needing your help. Yeah. Amana, can we come to you next, please?
Hi, everyone. My name is Amana. I'm a first-year student at Swansea Medical School. And I'm just here to learn more about social enterprise because I'm thinking of setting one up. And much like Louise, I don't know much about business, so I'm just here to learn about things. And I want to work with young people in mental health. Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. So we're going to come to Mary next. So Mary, your camera's off and you're on mute as well. Well, just had a tumbleweed past the screen then. So we'll let's come to Anne, because Anne, I can see you now, and you're I think you're unmuted as well.
Hiya. Yeah, I'm Anne. Sorry, I'm in the middle of doing deliveries. Background in education. I'm currently a student in Cardiff Uni. I'm just looking for some kind of, I don't know, inspiration. Really interested in the idea of social enterprise and business. Yeah, that's me.
Excellent, thank you. Sally, can we come to you next? If you could unmute yourself.
Hiya, I'm Sally Morgan. I currently run a craft class business, which is on hold because of COVID. I do in-person classes in Cyflwynir community. My idea is to set up a creative hub, so to get people using creative activities to get people together and opening up doors for children to explore arts and crafts as activities after school and things like that. So, yeah.
Great, thanks, Sally. So just a reminder, if you're not speaking, if you make sure you're on mute for us, please. And let's come to Wayne. So Wayne, your camera's off and you're on mute. Okay, so Wayne, you're unmuted. Are you there? We've got no picture, no sound, I'm afraid. Right, I've got a picture now, but I haven't got any sound. So Wayne, it looks like you're driving. I tell you what, you are excellent. Right, okay. So we'll hear from you in a bit when it's safe to do so. Okay, so I'm going to share the screen now. I'm going to put a presentation up. So everybody remains on mute for the time being. Because there's so many of us on here, what we're going to do is there'll be the chat function. When I've got the presentation going, I won't be able to see the chat, but Claudia and Reese are primed, so they'll feel free to comment, to ask questions, and we'll pick those up as we go along. So bear with me, and I'll get the presentation ready. Excellent. Well, I've introduced myself, you've established I've got a beard and glasses. 3 things from this session. I'm going to go through some tools on social entrepreneurs and social enterprises use. The best thing to do is to take these tools and to go away and make use of them. We simply don't have the time to be able to kind of use them in a practical way as we go through. The second thing is to reflect. So I hope this session will be good to reflect on where you're at in your journey and where you want to get to, the type of leader you want to be, the type of social enterprise that you want to run. So I hope it will help with those things. And to connect as well. So connecting with the people who are on the webinar today, but also because we at Social Business Wales work with so many startups and established business, it's making connections with them as well, and we'll be able to help you to do that. Here are the 3 things I want us to cover. So it's the identity of social enterprises, the crucial element of income and how you generate it, and to think through something of social impact and how you begin to measure it and what that looks like. So I noticed we've got a couple of comments in the chat at the moment. So Claudia, is there anything to bear in mind at the moment?
No, just people saying that we're happy to ask questions throughout. Awesome,
thank you. Okay, so that's roughly the plan, and we're over time on the first bit, so I'll try and talk twice as fast to get through it. And the timings are slightly quirky anyway, as you can see, but I want us to cover triple bottom line, social enterprise, understanding the problem you're trying to address, thinking what we need, how we're going to measure impact and income. And then at the end, we'll think through the support that's out there in Wales and some of the specific support that we offer. Thinking about social enterprise, if you're not familiar with this, triple bottom line is a brilliant lens that every business should be using to think about the impact that it makes. So this was an idea that was put forward back in the mid-1990s, really with the argument that every business affects not just profit and that bottom line, but three bottom lines. So every business impacts the planet, every business will impact people. So it was a guy called John Elkington who came up with this concept. And it was a way of signaling that a business needs to measure its performance over a period of time in all three of these areas, and that it's not enough that a business focuses its attention simply on the bottom line of profit, but it needs to know how its impact is being made in other areas. And this is an ethical way of doing things. So I think for social businesses, actually that's naturally part of their DNA, that a social business, by its very nature, is going to have clauses in its memorandum of arts that's going to specify how it's going to benefit people and how it's going to benefit the planet. But I put this out there as a question, so do feel free to chip in the chat section with this. Think of your own social business idea, think of the principle of being a social business. How could a social business, how should it evidence its commitment to people and planet? And what principles and practices could a business adopt to make sure that happens? So feel free to chip in into the chat function with that. It's worth saying that if you Google John Elkington and triple bottom line, he wrote an article last year that he said this concept needs a safety recall because it's been treated as an accountancy measuring tool and not as a paradigm shift, which is what he intended it to be. But I think for a social business, that works differently because there's not the fixation on maximizing profit for shareholders, that the impact made on people and planet are much more naturally part of the DNA for a social business. It's worth bearing in mind as well as these three things I've put on the screen for what a social business is, that a social business is itself an innovative form of business. It's much easier to think through what a charity is in terms of a social mission. When you think of business, you think of profit making. But social enterprise or social business, and I'd use those terms interchangeably, is an innovative way of combining a social vision and mission of a charity, but with a commercial trading existence, so that it is operating as a business. And social business covers a wide variety of forms. So we've mentioned things like community interest companies, we've got companies limited by guarantee, we've got cooperatives, we've got community benefit societies. So it's a bit like stepping into the TARDIS. What's the social business world look like? And social enterprise might look small on the outside, but once you're inside it, you realize there's a whole host of different forms. And what we would say as an organization is it's important if you're starting a social business to think through what's your social mission, what do you want to achieve? And you make that the priority. And then you figure out, well, what legal form do we need to make that happen? So social business is going to make the world a better place. It's going to create value and impact. And that value is going to be social, cultural, and financial. And then crucially, it's a business that generates income to sustain itself. So it is not going to be like a charity, ultimately, in the way it operates, because it's going to have income generation as part and parcel of it. Rhys Williams, anything to bear in mind in the chat at the moment?
Hi, Matt. Yeah, just answering a question, actually, to Peter, and Claudia's mentioned it as well. It's relating to entrenchment clauses, I think, objects of an organization and how to change them. So yeah, so I think I think you're okay to continue. And we'll deal with that in the chat.
All right, sounds technical. I'll leave you to it.
Yeah.
Something else to say about, often you find social businesses referred to as not-for-profit organizations. I don't think the language around that is helpful because every business has to be for profit. That's something when Peter introduced himself that I was really helpful what he said. All businesses are for profit, and a social business has to be a profit. You can't sustain a business unless you're making money. In fact, it's easier with a business that only exists for profit to know if it's a success or failure, because the market will tell you. If you haven't got customers, or if you're not charging enough to cover all your overheads, then your business will fail. If you've not marketed properly, if you're not reaching people, it will fail. And the market will tell you whether your business is viable or not. Social businesses, they have to be for profit. You have to generate income to allow you to run your activities and to be able to invest in the business. So I think the language has to be not for profit, but profit for good, or profit for purpose. So it's more about the use of the profit. And the other thing I would say, I think is really important, that having, I regularly speak on startup and entrepreneurship programs. And I think a key thing to get hold of is that if you start a social business, you do need to be able to earn an income from it that will sustain you as much as you would as if you're running any other business. And that's really important. This isn't a route to saying we're only going to volunteer, or we're not going to care about making sure that we can pay ourselves adequately. A social business has to do that and ought to do it. And lots of social businesses, actually, when they employ people, are living wage employers. But the crucial thing is, it's how you understand the nature of the profit making, that it's got to be for good and it's got to be profit for purpose. So the last thing on this section is to say, yeah, you're going to generate income by trading. You've got to have a strategy to make that happen. Social businesses sometimes, perhaps quite often, are dependent on grants in the short term to get going, but it can't be in the long term. And then profit then isn't for personal or shareholder gain. It's profit that's for purpose, and it'll be reinvested in the business and the community for good. And that, of course, is surplus profit, because you have to pay yourself and you have to pay any other staff as well. And then the legal structures are designed to actually serve those goals. So what happens is most people will set up a social business, and it will have an asset lock on it. So at the end of its life, you don't sell the business on, but the legacy will leave as a business then that is owned and run by the community to make it happen. So you'll find that this isn't a kind of solo venture. This is about working and developing a team of people who will run the business. This is the kind of Welsh Government definition, and it just amplifies what I've been explaining. So social enterprise is a business with primarily social objectives, and the surpluses then are reinvested in the business or in the community. Okay, and the contrast is, it's not there to drive, to feed the fat cats and make them fatter. The goal is maximizing profit for shareholders, the business and the community. Okay, anything in the chat worth bearing in mind, Claudia?
Yeah, I was just wanting to jump in. So Helen's made the point that with Gweithdy Roots, they're at this point of looking at no longer being grant dependent and becoming more enterprising while maintaining the same social ethos, which I think is really essential to everything we're talking about today. It's about how you can actually marry the two aspirations to achieve what your business wants.
Absolutely. So for a social business, that social mission is what distinguishes you from other businesses, because that's your primary driver. But that commercial aspect of making sure the business is sustainable is going to be equally essential to what you do. Whatever form you decide legally to go down, that has to be the kind of governing driving principle. That's what makes it innovative. Just kind of flag this up very briefly. So I'll send you the slides afterwards. This maps out the sort of span of types, from voluntary organisations on the one side to private businesses on the other. Just worth commenting, there are lots of forms where you've got this legal cap on distribution of assets. Community interest companies are a more recent innovation. So they started in 2005 as a new legal form to help social businesses. There are over 20,000 of them now in the UK. But then we've got this gap between social business and private sector. But I put B Corp on that side. So that's a business form that was started in 2006 in the States. And it's a way of a private company making sure it's got social clauses in what it does. And it also has an element where its responsibility towards people and planet are being measured and validated externally as well. Not many in the UK. The director of a B Corps has only got 276 businesses. That's tiny compared to the amount of just community interest companies there are. But it's a growing sector, and it may suit certain business types more than others. So you find a lot of B Corp businesses are media companies or design companies, but then you've got breweries as well. So that's just a kind of range of the options. And you can look at that and think, well, where am I on that at the moment? Where do I want to be? So some of you on the call, you can see that you're on, as you look at the screen on the left-hand side, you may want to already start moving further to that social enterprise, social business end of the scale. I'm going to introduce you to a tool that was devised by Said Business School in Oxford. And this helps the sort of pre-trading stage of the business, or early trading stage where you're getting going. And they developed this tool, this impact gaps canvas, because they realized that lots of people can start a social business and you rush to getting it started and rush to get it going without doing the particular work that a social business will need to do in terms of market research, which is what this is. So they devised this canvas. This is open source. Once the webinar is finished and we send you an email follow-up, we will send this the link to this resource for you. I think this is a brilliant way to analyze the challenge or the problem you're trying to address, and to map out, well, what's already going on? Who's already working in this area, both locally, across the UK, internationally? And there's a whole set of questions that you can begin to ask. And this is the this is the idea stage, pre-trading hard work that you can put in that might save you reinventing the wheel. You might think you've got an idea that maybe nobody else is doing, and then this encourages you to do research to find out what else is going on. And part of the joy of that, I think, is the social business world isn't marked by competition, marked by collaboration and cooperation. So to actually learn from others who are the world or parts of the UK is really important. So this isn't, you could spend a whole 3-hour session on doing this, but we'll send this to you because I think this is the essential spade work to do to understand, that challenge you're trying to address, what the scale of it is, what you're able to do. So that's all I can cover on that section at the moment, but I think this is just a great resource to make use of.
Can I jump in as well? Just to encourage people to use that. I think it's a really good resource, and often social entrepreneurs I engage with are looking to tackle really huge, complicated issues, and as much as you can do to kind of specify and work down and become really specific about what is the real challenge that you're looking to address in your community or your community of interest. So tools like this, I think, can really help get you up for success.
Excellent. Thanks, Claudia. This next section, we're going to think through the resources that what we might need to get going. So what do you need for yourself, and what do you need from other people? I'm going to suggest a couple. But please kind of pop these in the chat, and I think or just unmute yourself and chip in. What resources do you need to get going? What resources do you need to take your idea or your early trading forward? And let's begin to sort of map this out and discuss it a little bit. Feel free to chip in, don't be shy.
Sorry, guys. So I think as part of your ideas, your sort of thoughts on this in terms of what resources you actually require, I think a lot of people sort of look towards like the visioning, the sort of planning aspect out of it. What actually do you need to look at and focus on the ideas that you actually have, and then how you can implement them. And I think that comes down to sort of like your sort of vision statement, your mission statement, and your business planning. But it doesn't have to be that technical. And I think as long as you've got an outline plan, you can start then deciding what sort of resources you require, whether that's additional personnel, additional people, whether it means assets for your organization. So whether it's technicalities, know-how, expertise, things like that, professional advice. So it can be a broad range of things that you actually require. So it could be additional people. So, you know, I would just, when you're actually formulating your thoughts, maybe, you know, you can think of the wider scope as well, but then focusing on what you're actually aiming to achieve. And I think that's ultimately your goal is what is your ultimate goal by, you know, or your purpose then, if that helps.
Okay, Rhys, while you're unmuted, we've got a few comments in the chat, what we've got in there.
Yeah, I'm just going to go and check. I've been dropping in and out, Mark, because of my web connection. So
you get
jump in if you like, following the chat. So, you know, we've got a few people commenting that childcare can be a real challenge, and there's an extra resource that is needed to be able to put the time into setting up a new social business. We've also had a point raised about the challenge of being able to find like-minded people with complementary skills in order to put your team together to create a startup as well. And confidence as well as another, being raised as another kind of challenge and an extra resource that would be needed.
So I think coming in on the like-minded people, I think, you know, networking is a major factor in this. You know, once you've got an idea, you've put it down and then you put yourself out there. You know, when you partner up with other organizations or other people, obviously it's like entering into a relationship in a way. So you've got to be secure in your thought in terms of who you're actually entering into that relationship with. So I think even though there's no one answer to it, a global answer, it is a case of once you've got your ideas in place, then reaching out to a network of organizations and people to see other like-minded people to obviously, and to see what skills they've got as well. You can obviously got skills gap. There are things where you can sort of apply for, you know, like you can actually recruit additional people, and you know, you can put adverts out in sort of like voluntary organizations, things like that. But your best bet is to actually go and network within the industry and within the specifics as well. So if you know the area in which you want to work, is maybe to start networking within that area. So I know, like Peter's mentioned it in the chat about health and social care. You know, I know he was he ran a business in there previously, so I'm sure he knows the networks within that. But it's what your idea is, because there are a lot of different ideas out there, and they can be very specific as to where you need to network and reach out to others. Social media is always a good one.
Yeah, I was going to say that, you know, you can, whether it's using a Facebook group for your local community or your community of interest, or using platforms like LinkedIn as well, and even Twitter can be very noisy, but actually you can use it as a great way to find out about people who have similar interests to yourselves, or maybe working in that area.
I think one of the other things that mentioned is confidence, and I think it's difficult sometimes if you don't feel confident, but I think that's part of our role as well, to provide reassurance at times, and to make people aware that they actually can achieve these things. You know, you can go out and do the things that you're aiming to achieve, and maybe the barriers that are in front of you are not as great as you may first think. So I think that's an element. I know confidence got to come from within, but also once you actually start breaking things down into bite sizes, they do become a little less complicated.
Just something to add on the network front. We'll add the link in the chat and send it out to you. We've got 2 networking meetings next week for people who are at the startup stage, and you're really welcome to join us for that. I started a business 5 years ago, and you know, at the start, you gain your first customer, you start putting yourself out there in terms of networks. I remember being 18 months in and thinking, you know, I'd established a network of people no connection with before. I kind of, it's those milestones, but I do appreciate, you know, people you can struggle with imposter syndrome. You can think, well, nobody else in my family's run a business, but you know, who am I to do it, sort of thing. A great resource, well, having a business advisor, so that's something that we as a New Start project provide support with, but also a peer mentor as well, a critical friend, being part of a small network. We'll need to talk about money, but we'll save that until we hit the hour mark. But that's a key thing. People ask about resources. Well, I need some funding to get going. Just coming back to the chat, Claudia, anything else in there now, or I shall move on to the next section.
Yeah, just a bit of a discussion around if there are places where you can network specifically with other social entrepreneurs. So I've just included the Eventbrite link for our Startup with a Cup of sessions. So we're running 2 next week, which you can sign up to. And that's all about bringing together people just like yourselves at this similar stage and setting up a social business.
Great, thank you. I'm going to come now to social impact and how we begin measuring it. And there are various kind of tools out there, but I'm going to start with theory of change as an important one, and something that funders are increasingly looking at social businesses to have in place. And again, I'll put the template up, and you'll have this with the slides. And this is to look at the change that your social business can make within the world. If you're at the start stage, a theory of change model will be there to as a way of actually beginning to gather data and see how that relates then to where you're heading and where you want to get to. Or organizations that have been running activities and measuring outputs over a period of time will use this often as a communication tool. Let me explain how it works. So, we think about that challenge or problem that we're trying to address. And that's one pole, that's a kind of starting point. And it might be from your experience, it might be from the experience of somebody you know, but that's something you really have to drill down to. What is it that you want to change? It's very easy to use the language of, a social business or a charity changes the world or changes communities. But this tool gives that a bit of discipline to ask, well, actually, what changes are you making? Are they the ones that you think? So there's that issue of the problem we're addressing and the context of it. And the opposite pole then is the desired state. How do we want to leave the world? What will the world look like once we put all these things in place to make this change? Let me give you an example, and then we'll kind of fill in the gaps in between. Again, this is the kind of exercise that takes time to do, but is really valuable and worthwhile in understanding the impact that you're going to make. So let's give an example. Know social businesses, and they've been set up to tackle the problem of young people with additional learning needs facing or being in unemployment. And how do you deal with that? And I know a few that have started up because there have been young people who've got the end of their college period, and there's just a cliff edge. There's nothing to follow from them, and so they're invisible in the community, or they're not an active part of it. What is there out there to help them? And then you think, well, what's the desired state? What will it look like? Well, a measure of independence will be part of what you're trying to achieve. Being connected in your community, a sense of confidence and self-worth will be, some of the kind of the softer but really important things that you want to see as an outcome. You want to see meaningful employment, an employment that has living wage attached to it. And you can look, well, will the activities actually lead to that? So here's an example of an activity. You might say, well, okay, we'll start something up, and we're going to provide training courses or an apprenticeship program to help these young people. And that will be something you can measure. So it could be that on your first course, you get 10, the next course, 20, et cetera, et cetera. And your outputs then you can measure. So you can report back to whoever has funded this and say, okay, well, we've got 150 young people this year who have gained level 1 or level 2 qualifications. And that's a measurable output. And that looks like success. But the question is, well, what did that lead to? What were the outcomes? The output is what you measure. The outcomes are the short and medium term changes. So of those 150 young people, how many gained employment? What kind of employment did they gain? Was it stable employment? Did it last more than 6 months? What kind of contract did they get? How did they feel about it? What other changes took place? And then you're teasing out the assumptions. What are the links between the activities and the outputs? What are the assumptions between those numbers, which are easy to measure, and the actual real changes that we want to see? So this is a really good tool to use to sit down and work out, okay, will the changes and the activity that I'm putting in place, will it really lead to the desired state? And is it me doing this, or are there other factors that are going to influence it as well? So I might attribute, these changes to something I've done, but it might be down to something else. So you have to work out, well, what's the context? What are the external factors? So I think this is a really powerful tool. And after the webinar, when we send you that email with other resources, we'll send through a 10-step guide from New Philanthropy Capital on how to begin to put together your theory of change model. But we have noticed with funders, particularly the lottery, this is what they're asking about. Do you have a theory of change? Show us how what you're doing is making impact in the world. Let's come to income generation. How are you going to make it sustainable? What I would like you to do in the comment section is to comment on the pros and cons of these four quarters, and also maybe where you see yourself at the moment and where you maybe want to end up. So we've got trading and commissioning in the top half, funding and fundraising at the bottom. What are the pros and cons for all these four areas from a social business standpoint?
So we've had a good point in the chat from Amana about how fundraising amounts are not reliable, which is, absolutely important. And fundraising, it's very competitive as well. You can't guarantee how much you'll receive or if you'll be successful. And even if you are, I'd always encourage people to see it as one-off. You'll struggle to continue to get funding for the same thing time and time again. So it's great as a boost, as a way to pump prime a new organization. It's fantastic, but you have to see it that way.
Yeah, sometimes you strike gold with it. So if you know of Big Moose Coffee Company in Cardiff, just off Queen Street, not-for-profit cafe, they managed to crowdfund, I think it was 25,000 over a weekend to get going, and they've got an amazing story. But yeah, the amounts vary, and whether you're successful on that is quite a variable. Claudia, what else have we got in the comments?
Can I just comment, Martin, just to make people aware who perhaps may not realise, the B2B is business to business and the B2C is business to customer. So it's actually who you're selling with the trading, just in case anybody was unclear on that.
Right.
Yeah, so just jumping in again with some of the comments. So Louise has mentioned the challenge of being a sole trader and how that is limiting her access to funding at this time, which is absolutely true, and it's important for yourselves, if you're taking on the risk of taking on funding, to actually set up a company so that you have limited liability. You're not going to be personally liable for that funding if anything goes wrong. So that's really important. But she's also commented that with the KIC structure or a legal structure, it's about knowing who to collaborate with and how to know trustworthy people, which is also true, and a lot of people start with very small teams for that reason. But it's a real benefit as well to being a social business, is having that wider structure where you can bring in the support and the expertise, because everyone's got something to contribute, and it's a great way to make sure that you are including people from your target community, or the special area that you're working on, and really get that genuine representation and have that to influence your business. So there are huge benefits, but it is challenging. It can take a while to find the right people to work with.
I think Peter made a good point in the comment section as well. Trading allows more independence to enable social impact, to be the ones that the team, community, customers decide, not those funding or supporting. So actually you make your decisions on where your money actually goes in terms of the impact. But also as well, you know, when you bring in that money in, you're not restricted as most funding is to certain areas. So when you actually build a funding package, when you apply for funding, you're asking for that funding for specific purposes. So I think that is it. And what we're actually aiming to achieve through social business as well is sustainability. So what we want is for more organizations to become sustainable and less grant reliant. Okay, but on that being said, grants are always a good form of income, especially when you're starting up or when you're growing your project or growing your business. So obviously, you know, there's a lot to be said for grants as well. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. I was glad you mentioned that, Rhys, via Peter. So the trading and commissioning, where you can get public sector contracts, you will need to be in control of your destiny. If you're going for funding, you're going to have to satisfy the criteria of the funders. They may not align necessarily with your own goals as a social business. Whereas if your income comes from trading, then you are in control of it. And you pursue your social mission, and you've got sustainability. So let me give you some examples of that. From the product sector, so you've got social businesses that have a 2-for-1 principle or a buy one giveaway principle to what they do. Tom's Shoes is a very famous one. They're a B Corp company, and for every pair of shoes you buy, they give a pair to a child. Started in Argentina, but it became global, who otherwise wouldn't have a pair of shoes. Or Madlug, the rucksack company in Northern Ireland, who are a community interest company, and for every bag you buy, they will give a bag to a child in care, because children in care don't have the dignity of anybody giving them any bags or luggage when they, you know, having to go in between foster homes. So that principle is from, you know, the sale of the product, you know, you've got money that's you can use to pursue your social mission. This is a really valuable tool, and it's really good to face this and to think, well, where am I now at the start of the journey, but where do I want to be? If you're doing a financial forecast, you need to think about it in terms of these different areas of funding and how that's going to work. I'm going to leave that there for now. I'm going to briefly touch on stakeholder engagement, but really only briefly. Stakeholders are anybody who can say no to you in running a business. It can be your own family. It can be the bank manager when you go for a loan. It can be the funder. It could be volunteers. So all the people who can say no to you or say yes to you and make the business a success. So here's a grid, which I'll send in that email. That's, you know, going to be so big it'll take like 3 days to download. But an exercise to do is to work out, well, who are your main stakeholders? Who are the important people or institutions, and what do they value? So this is like a customer mapping exercise, really. What do you know that they value? And then ask, well, what do you think you know? So where are you not so sure about what they value? And what do you need to find out? So this is a kind of research tool to map out the key people. Sometimes, I mean, those of you who've done anything in management, you get the power interest grid. So you look at people who've got a high interest in the business but may have little power, and those who've got a lot of power and a lot of interest, and your communication with them needs to be regular. I found when I was running a media company, often customers would choose us for one service, but they wouldn't realize we did other ones as well. So we were missing out on opportunities. So they might have chosen us for video, but didn't know that we did print as well. So it's a good exercise to do, to work out, you know, who are the stakeholders, who are the customers, what's important, what they value. Again, this is the kind of thing that takes time to do. It's a really important tool, and it's, you know, it's one of a number of tools from this session to take away and use. And just a few things on questions, important questions. Whenever a business starts, there are obvious questions that you ask. Is this a good idea? Will anybody buy this product or service? Do I know who will buy it? Can I scale it? Can I do it locally? Can I do it beyond local? Is it something that can be franchised? All those sorts of things. These are the questions that people don't ask, but social businesses are good at asking, and you need to ask yourself. So is it going to be good for people? Will it improve or damage mental health? Okay, so take an example of Amazon. Does Amazon improve or damage people's mental health? Does it reduce poverty, or will it increase it? Will it include other people, or is it going to exclude them? How do you know? How are you going to measure it? Social businesses need to ask these questions. It's not worth starting a business unless you've got good answers to this, and that goes for any business. Same goes for planet as well. So is your idea going to fix the climate, or is it going to harm it? What can you put in place? What foundations to make that happen? How are you going to measure it and improve it, and so on? Really important. Those are the reflective questions to ask about exactly what you're going to do and where you're heading. I'm going to ask Claudia to take us through Social Business Wales New Start and the support we offer. This is a crucial part, so I asked Rhys and Claudia to join on this session, because they are actively day in, day out supporting new social enterprises. So Claudia, over to you.
Thanks, Martin. I'll go through this quickly because I'm conscious of time, but essentially we're all part of the Social Business Wales New Start programme, so we can help you all to go through these stages of setting up a social business. So it's European funding, but don't worry, it is committed until the end of 2022, and it's part of the wider Business Wales family of support. It's delivered by the Wales Cooperative Centre as a project, so that's our employer, and we cover all of Wales. Next slide, Martin.
Yeah, it's on its way. It's coming from Caerphilly.
So it's very much a one-to-one bespoke type of support program. So what people like myself and Rhys, depending on your region, would be linked up with you to support you with the specific areas that you're looking at, where you need advice. We can then also offer peer-to-peer mentoring support. So there's a budget where we can link you up with someone who has been and done it and set up a similar social business to what you're looking to do, and link you up with them so you can get that first-hand learning from their experience of all the warts and all kind of experience of what it was like. So we can provide that. And our support, it goes right the way from inception through to the point where you're trading and you're actually ready to create jobs. I won't read through all of this, but these are some of the steps that we can support you with. So whether you're at that early stage of pulling your team together, working out if you have got a collective vision that you can agree on, and refining what that is, really what is the challenge that your business will address and how is it going to do that. We can give advice on legal structure. I know there's a lot of questions around that. There's a lot of different options. So being a social business is not a legal structure in itself. There's multiple ones. A lot of people have already mentioned the community interest company structure, but we can look at the other options as well, such as company limited by guarantee, community benefit society. It's all about working out what's right for your kind of vision and what your business will do. We can take you through incorporation, giving you all the training along that way so that you understand what you're signing up for and all of your directors are happy with that. We can support you with governance, so all about how you're going to actually work together collaboratively to run your business, and then helping with issues like setting up your policies and procedures to make sure that you're managing any kind of risks of your business and you're being compliant, and looking at your fundraising strategy as well. I always say we can't do stuff for you, but we can really help you and guide you and be that critical friend sometimes, asking you difficult questions to help you move in the right direction.
Joe, one of the things we can help with is we pay for the incorporation fees, so that's
yes,
a cheeky
exactly.
bonus.
Yeah, and we can act as an agent to actually do the paperwork when you're setting up a company with Companies House. So it's one less thing you need to worry about and stress about. And we have what we call model articles as well. So things where we've structured it and written it to be as clear language as possible, and making sure it has all the social clauses, everything you'd want to see from a social business. In terms of our eligibility criteria then, you do need to have a basic business idea in place. It can be early stage, but it needs to be something that you've done some amount of thinking around it and some amount of research to kind of question, okay, you know, who is my community? Who are my customers? Is this needed? How will it help? You've just done that thinking. We can help then guide you towards turning that into a whole business plan. Ideally, you'd have key individuals in place to develop the business. It's okay if you don't, we can support you with that, but it's great if you do already have your team together. We also need to see that there's the aspiration to create jobs. in the next 2 years, so that's just part of our criteria, and that you've identified trading activity, picking up on all the same topics we've been discussing so far around the fact that a social business does need to be trading. There needs to be an element of generating your own income. So that's essential for to define yourself as a social business, and therefore for us to work with you, as well as having clear social objectives. So in some way, by setting up this business, you're going to be solving a social issue, whether it's just that the profits are going to go towards it, or whether that it's the actual business model in itself is going to be addressing these issues by the nature of what the business will be doing.
Excellent, thanks Claudia. That's the end of the presentation because that takes us up to the hour. Those are my details. If you've got any kind of questions or queries beyond this stage anyway. What we've done is we've set this up so that we've spent the hour just touching on all of these crucial topics, and then we've reserved a half hour to end the session where you can ask any questions, and it'll be much more of a sort of a chat and a dialogue. And that's why we sent Claudia here, because they can talk about clients they've been working with and how we can provide specific help and support. But this is the kind of, you can stay on the call, you don't have to stay on the call. We could be on here 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, but the maximum will be 3:30. That's it. I'm putting the kettle on and we're done for the day, sort of thing. Feel free to ask any questions. You can unmute yourself at this point. I'll stop sharing the screen. Feel free to chip in, or you can put questions in the chat, and then we'll get going on that. From previous ones of these that I've done, there is that question of, well, okay, so we're talking about funding. Where do I actually go and look for funding, and who's gonna help with that? So that might be something to consider. But the floor is yours, and make use of this time. Lots of experience on here with Reese and Claudia and their work, so pick their brains and find out some more. So yeah, who wants to go first? Don't be shy.
So the main elements of what we're doing is basically it's come from 3 of us. We have a committee of 5 of us, and as I say, we're basically a community group. The 4 of us who started the group have been very much based on whatever we get, we just put straight back into the community. So when people came to us and said that they wanted a party in the park, we did a party in the park and we found 50 quid and we got the insurance and we did it. When people said they wanted more, we got hold of the money and we created a festival. Then they came to us and said they wanted a litter pick, we litter picked that. We've basically just gone around responding to people in our community through our Facebook page and through our events and things that have brought people together. We're now in a place, as I'm saying, that we want to be making almost like a separate business arm. So we are we are totally aimed at giving Gilwern, and specifically Gilwern, what we think they're telling us that they want. So we try to create that space. In terms of the business arm, how much information would I need to be presenting to yourselves to be involved in having your mentorship and your support? Because our idea is functional, I think. We've done a little bit of research, we kind of know where we're going. How could I step into getting the kind of support you guys are offering? What would I need to present you with?
Hi Ellen. Basically, all we ask for is that you've done some level of research into the business that you actually want to enter into. So obviously you've got the community background, you've got the social objectives of what you want to achieve. Yeah. And I think then it's just are you at an outline idea yet, or are you still very much?
So we are looking for land to start the idea with, basically, and we are looking for partners to do it. We have a few partners to work with. We as a group always work with partners. It's not about us being alone. Gilwyn Roots is about pulling all of the community together and getting many people at the end. When I was asked at the beginning, what do you intend to do? 10 years from now, the idea would be that we are all a completely connected village that are eco, great ethos of shopping local, working together, children growing up knowing where their food came from, being a part of creating their own food, you know, respecting their environment, and along the way having created jobs and spaces for people to enjoy time together. So it's quite a broad thing that we're going for, but the business that we're looking at is generating our own food, which I'm sure everybody is looking at right now with COVID, but that is here in our village that people actually get to be involved in doing, and us using electric bikes and electric transport to get it to people's houses, like a local veg box type thing.
Yeah.
As I say, everybody's doing it. There's a huge market in it, but for us, it's about the people that are here. We are looking to maybe pay a few members of the volunteer committee one day, and we're certainly looking for that idea to be sustainable. That's as a group. If that could then come back into our other outputs of helping fix the skate park or whatever it is we get into, as people tell us what they want, it's about totally local for us.
So I think from our context, then you've got the aspects of what you want to, like I say, the social part of it is all tied up. You know, like you're always going to have a customer base in terms of who wants money off you, and then the reasons the community is always going to be there for that. So I suppose the other element then is how you bring that money in. So you mentioned some of the, you know, potential income streams. You talked about land and the reasons why you want it. So yeah, so basically you could put an application form into us and we could discuss it, and then we'd go through like the mission or the vision of what you actually want to achieve. But we'd focus in on the business element of it, how realistic it is, whether it is further sort of market research required within that area, you know, the type of the resources you have currently available to you through the people that you have available, and the technical know-how for the areas that you're actually discussing. So yeah, so you're pretty much at the point now where you could come to us.
Okay.
Sort of like that sort of inaugural meeting. We could just have a chat about it as a group, as I say, you know, like, and ironically, if you're in Gilwyn, I think you'll be covered by myself anyway. So yeah, so if yourself and your fellow, I don't know what you call them, trustees, members.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to come to us and have a chat about it, and then we can, yeah, certainly.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you very much. It's been wonderful because I've never even thought about being a business or trying to do that part of it. For me, it's been the inspiration is my community and how fractured sometimes we can be as a village. And I guess that's why we went into doing a festival, because everybody wants a pint in the park and to get together. But there's no money in giving it away for free forever.
And I think a part of it as well, one of the things that people are so keen on doing good, they forget, like I think Peter mentioned earlier, about the aspect of actually bringing the money in and being business first. Yeah. You know, because you've got to have money in order to spend it or to use it for those purposes. Excuse me. So yeah, so it is developing that idea around what your business is going to be, and we can do that. So put an application into us, and
thank you very much for meeting. Yeah, my children have just come home, so I am going to have to leave now. But thank you very, very much.
Okay, no worries,
Helen. We've got a couple of.
Oh, sorry, Martin.
Sorry, go on, Claudia. I was going to say we've got a couple of questions in the chat as well to pick up on.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, you know, as advisors, we're always happy to have a phone call and have a chat with someone, even if you're not quite sure if you're at the stage to work with us. Happy to have a chat, answer your questions, and then make a bit of a plan to say, okay, that's great, you know, go away and do X, Y, and Z, and then when you're ready, get back in touch with us. So if in doubt, get in touch. We'll have a chat with you. So we have had some questions on the chat, so I don't know if people want to sort of jump in and repeat them. So if we start with Amana, you've got a question about trading as a social enterprise. Do you want to jump in and just sort of explain what in particular you're interested in finding out?
I basically have no idea how you would trade enough to be able to pay people that work with you a good enough salary. So I was wondering if you could tell us more about that.
Yeah, and it's always a challenge. You know, a lot of social businesses will have a lot of volunteer support behind them, which helps get them up and running. most social enterprises I work with as well aim to be a living wage employer, feel that, you know, they really want to pay people a decent wage. So that is a challenge. The good thing about going for a social business structure, so some of the ones, well, most of the ones we look at, means that you can actually trade very flexibly. So you can do any type of trading that fits your business purposes. There's no, I mean, obviously within the parameters of doing stuff that's ethical and legal, you can do anything you like. So whether it's some organizations just simply using the kind of cafe trade business model to then generate income for their activities, or whether there's ways that you can actually charge for the services or the work that you're doing. So it's quite a big question, really. It totally depends on the type of sector you're working in, what your business wants to do. But essentially, you can do any kind of trading that a private business could do. It's all about then in the background how you're operating as an organization and what you're doing with those profits. And that's what would distinguish you as a social business rather than a private business. It's all about that back end of it, if that makes sense.
I think as well, Amana, one of the things that the key point, I suppose, to your question is that you've got to have enough money coming in to pay the individuals. So it's how you actually set up that payment, you know, whether they go full-time, part-time, you know, the type of wages that you pay and whether you pay sessional, what you can actually afford to do, what's right for your business at the start, especially when if you're at the startup phase, it's much more difficult to actually raise the finances to pay wages. So you've just got to be, so I think somebody mentioned cash flow forecasting in the chat earlier. I think that's key, you know, that's part of what we do as well. So we'll sit down with you and we'll have a look at where your income streams are, whether that be grant or other forms of income or financing. And then we'll look at whether it's plausible for you to actually employ. So yeah, so does that answer the question?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, cool. Who else was on here? So
we've got a question from Wayne about FE colleges, examples of ones that have developed social business to support and grow vulnerable learners. Wayne, do you want to comment any further on
that? I'm no longer driving now, so I'm safe to speak.
We're relieved.
Yeah, basically, I head up a department in a college in Cardiff in the Vale, and a lot of my learners are involved in project-based activity, very small scale, usually within the college campus, selling gifts, etc. at Christmas. And having run a social enterprise myself, I'm trying to get a proposal to the exec, either to the college or independently, of a social business where the young people are supported to facilitate and run the social enterprise. So there's a community garden, for example. There's issues of marketing. We've got a stall at the Hayes Christmas Fair, for example. And I can see lots of potential there. And what I'm looking for really is, obviously we're a big establishment as a college, and it's very difficult to get my sort of ideas to be a priority in terms of setting that up. Or are there examples of colleges where they've set an arm up, so any sort of legal or financial requirements, I can say, look, this college did this college did that, so that I haven't got to waste my energy trying to convince people. Or alternatively think, okay, let's think outside the box a little bit, send up an independent group anyway, because I recognise from the report last week of the 10-year plan about education and social business, and I recognise my staff, I've got 42 staff in my department, and I would say about 3 people know what social business is or social enterprise is. Now, we get role models in doing enrichment activities. What we don't do is having staff who develop these projects who are tutors and also do good deeds in the community. They don't get the CPD of what that could be. They don't see that vision. So just looking for advice and the guidance around that, really.
Okay. Was I going to say something? Yeah, well, as I say, I haven't actually got any sort of examples myself, but I'm pretty confident that they would be out there. I think it's all about the dependence between what you're expecting of the college as well, if you're selling that to the college. So what the expectation is on the college, and what, you know, whether you're expecting financial expectation, whether you're expecting sort of whether they're going to sit in on the board of trustees or the board of directors. So there's things like that. But in terms of actual research, I haven't actually worked with a college that has done it, but I'm pretty confident that there will be ones out there that have. I don't know about you guys, Martin, Claudia, whether
I've not met any.
Vision 21, Wayne.
Pardon?
Have you come across Vision 21 in Cardiff?
We subcontract some of our work to Vision 21, so we know the chief exec, Rob, there. And it picks up on the conversation Martin had earlier about providing employability for learners with ALN. There's a massive gap in that, but we want to develop the work skills before they reach that point within the college environment. They feel that confidence in our journey. So we're reshaping our work skills program, which tend to be classroom-based on-site. We want them more realistic. So we need that flexibility to develop that further, because I need to convince tutors that we need to deliver differently as well, perhaps.
Yeah, because I mean that's the only example I know. I know it's not quite the same because it's not college owned, but where you've got that model of learners actually developing skills, doing activities for people who don't know. The participants in Vision 21, the students, they will get involved in classes like pottery and woodwork and then sell them at Christmas markets. So it's generating income at the same time as giving people the opportunity to gain skills and have support as well in that environment. So I think this is probably a conversation to be carried on really in terms of doing some research to find a precedent for that. Obviously, in terms of kind of our approach to social business, it's always about making sure that it is autonomous. It's set up, it's for the purpose, for the social, to achieve its social objectives rather. So I'd want to look at kind of how the connection would work, how the ownership would work with the college. But
okay. I think that's what they're struggling with.
Yeah.
Okay, lovely, thanks.
Great, thanks, Wayne. I've met a number of enterprise champions from across HE and FE in Wales, but I've not met any who've said that, yeah, we've got a social enterprise running. It's a question I think I would ask to Anne Swift in Welsh Government in case she knows.
Okay.
I think it's more likely that there are examples in Scotland than there are in Wales at the moment. But yeah, I think this could be a really interesting conversation to have, and it's a really important area. So we're keen to pick that up. Just checking what other questions. So we've got questions from Peter. Sally, you've got a question as well about the business plan and choosing the legal structure. And Sally, we didn't hear from you earlier. Are we able to hear from you now?
Oh, hi, yeah. I'm not putting my camera on, sorry, because I've got kids running around everywhere. Yeah, I'm just in the middle of writing my business plan. And I think, like a lot of people, it's hard to decide upon that structure in the early stages. I just wondered, like, you don't really want to, it's not a waste of time, but you don't want to get so far and then have to rewrite everything. So how important is it to get that structure on paper at the very beginning, or do you kind of fit the structure around your idea afterwards?
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
I think that once you've got your idea, your structure is based around things like, whether you want members, whether the person who's actually making the decisions wants to be employed. They tend to be the reasons why people choose different types of structures.
Yeah.
You engaging with the community at large, things like that. So
I lost you then, sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, once you've got your outline plan and the idea of what you actually want to achieve and how you want to do it, you can look at structures that are suitable for what you're actually aiming to achieve.
Okay.
So you may go in thinking, a lot of people come to us with preconceived ideas of the right structure for them, and then once we actually talk through the advantages and disadvantages of different structures, they actually change their mind.
Okay.
So, as I say, I think your idea, your vision, your mission at the beginning is very important, and have that outline plan, and then decide on a structure afterwards, because certain structures are quite restrictive as well. And I think people obviously, need to be. I had a lady on a call earlier who came in, and essentially she would have been better off set. She was determined to be a kick.
Yeah.
And the advice was really that she would be better off setting up as a charity. So it was a different legal model altogether, So yeah, so it's get your idea down, I would say, Sally, and then
yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Okay. we've also got Peter. We haven't started trading yet. Is there any merit in setting up a specific county and not the one we live in? You can set up in a different county where your registered office is. Obviously, you can operate in any part of England, Wales, Scotland, you know, in terms of your operation. It's just, I suppose it depends the reasoning behind it. So obviously you will have geographical funding areas. So there may be certain areas where you can access funding if that's what you're looking for. Given some of your comments so far, Peter, I'm not sure whether grant funding is something that you're really interested in or not. I don't know. But yeah, so where you're actually set up, where your area the benefit is, can determine the types of funding that's available to you. I don't know if that answers your question. Yeah, if you want to.
Thank you for that. I was just thinking more in terms of the support from yourselves. So I live in the Vale, but you know, because it doesn't exist yet, it could be set up anyway, and I wouldn't want to preclude support to get going or on the way if actually I should have set it up in a different county. Does that make sense? Because it will operate across Wales and hopefully England in due course. So. Yeah,
that's not a problem. I actually work in the Vale, so yeah. Once again, if you want to put your idea across, get it in an application form to us, and we'll set up a meeting, have a chat about it, and we'll develop your idea. Then we'll see how we can help. That's okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Excellent. We've got lots of good networking going on in the chat as well. So that's really that's good to see. Any more questions? I don't think I've missed any, but any questions people have got that we haven't covered? Now's a good time. We've got maximum of 8 minutes left.
I think if Louise has come up with a good point, actually, in answer to Wayne. So asking if Beechwood College do this as a business model. So basically, you know, there's a little bit of, you know, like networking there in terms of maybe there's some ideas or some so people who've got knowledge on some things that we perhaps haven't at the moment. So yeah. So I'm not sure if you picked that up, Wayne, but that's on there for you.
Louisa said her battery is gone, so she'll be in touch.
Yeah, and just picking up. Is there any other questions on there? I'm just going through
there. Ben, have you put the link up for the catch-up cuppa networking session next week?
Yeah, a couple. In fact, Claudia and I both put it up in the same instant, so it's on there. I'll put it on again for everybody, and those are Tuesday and Wednesday next week, and it'd be lovely to see you there. I've also put a link just now onto the group, so the New Start peer support group for startup social enterprises, just on it now. It'd be lovely to see some of you on there as well, because informal conversations can carry on to see you supporting each other. So do click the link and send a request to join in there. I'll send the link for Startup the Cuppa again. 1 second.
So we've just had another question come through. Can you guys review a business plan? Where do we find the application to initiate contact, please? So can we put the copy of the application form into the chat, guys? Will we be able to do that?
I can put a link in, Reese.
Yeah, if you don't mind doing that, Claudia. And in terms of reviewing a business plan, the answer to that is yes, Sally. Whereabouts are you based, Sally?
I'm in Caerphilly.
Yeah, we've got an advisor in your area, so yeah, so again, what we'd require really is just to get an inquiry form across to us so that we can obviously initiate contact. One thing that's important, we're a European funded organisation, and any time that we spend with different organisations, we've got a log for our funder. So just as a justification for the funder itself. So yeah, if you're on our systems, then obviously we can then put our hours spent against, or the time that we spend with you or helping you out against your name. It's not no charge to anybody. It just justifies our our funding then. That's okay. The application form is now in there, guys. Are there any other questions? I think let's have a look.
I think that's it. From Amana, I think, asking, is a charity still a business? Rhys, I don't know if you want to pick up on that.
Whereabouts is, I can't see the question. Sorry. Right. So what, Amanda, do you want to ask that question just for me to...
Yeah, so a lot of like social enterprise is quite charitable, and I don't really know what the line is between having a charity, not for profit, or having any other sort of social enterprise business. Like, what is the difference?
It's the essential is that the charity can't trade, so it's not legally allowed to trade.
Oh, okay.
So that's why social businesses, because otherwise you'd have competitive advantage in terms of your charity structure compared to a normal business, so, or a social business. So a social business doesn't get many competitive advantages other organizations in terms of taxation. So like business rates, if you have a property and you've got business rates as a social business, there may be something that the local authority may give discretionary. So they may give you rating relief on the building, or, like an office block or whatever. But with a charity, you tend to get 80% mandatory business rate relief with additional 20. Charities don't pay corporation tax. So therefore, charities are not actually allowed to trade. When you see charity shops in like the high street, what they tend to have is the charity owns and runs the shop, but they have trading arms, which they actually run the trade on their behalf. So yeah, so that's probably the clearest distinction. The other thing as well is that one of the questions we get asked when people come to us is like, obviously they want to set up as an organization, they want to take a wage out with themselves. Now, if you're a charity trustee, you can't have any personal benefit from that organization, therefore you're not allowed to actually be paid. So you couldn't be a charity trustee and be involved with the steer of the organization and also receive an income for that. Okay, so there are other sort of laws and regulations around it, but broadly speaking, it's about trading, it's about taxation, and it's about control as well in terms of trustees and employees.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. Well, our time is up, guys. Thank you ever so much for joining us for this session. It was a real pleasure to hear your ideas and the stage you're at. We will send up a follow-up email, so it'll have all the links. It'll have a recording of the session. It'll have the resources sent on as well. And the final thing I want to say is I absolutely love working in this world. I think anybody who wants to start a social business, all power to you in doing so. It's our privilege in terms of the team to be able to support some really exciting businesses and some real committed people. So yeah, absolutely all power to you. Stay in touch, show us for the sessions that we run. I'll be delighted to help you in any way that we can. So thank you and enjoy the rest of your day. I'll give away, do the kind of the farewell wave to end. Thank you ever so much. Oh, and thank you to Ben as well for all his hard work.
Thank you all.
Cheers, Peter.